In 1971, Roye England, the founder of Pendon Museum, was interviewed by BBC Radio Oxford. At the time, around 45 years ago, very little of the Vale scene had been completed, although it was all mapped out in Roy's imagination. To complement this 10-minute-long interview, we have added images that show how his dreams and ambitions are now reality.
It was the idea of its founder, Mr. Roye England, who devotes almost all his time to extending the village and showing thousands of visitors every year around it. The other day I was shown around the museum, where Mr. England told me about the models he's building, which form the tiny village of Pendon Museum.
Along the White Horse Hills between Didcot and Swindon, there's a beautiful old chain of thatched villages that are getting spoilt nowadays. And at Pendon here, we are trying to reproduce one of those villages which will be typical, and we've put together to make a village that does represent that part.
So you go actually down to these cottages and you measure them up. But what do the people say who meet you at the front door when you ask, can I measure your cottage?
Well, I explain, of course, what we are doing, and everybody's been most helpful. And they've given me cups of tea in every cottage I've been to pretty well. There was just one case which I would like to tell you about where there might have been difficulty. It was at Uffington, a cottage there, rather overgrown. I went in, knocked on the door. Nobody came, but I could hear somebody moving about inside. Eventually, I banged loudly, and she came to the door. She was obviously deaf. And I said, can I take some photographs of your cottage, please? And she said, ask him. She pointed to somebody across the garden. So I went across the garden, found the old man sitting in the shed smoking a pipe. I said, can I take some photographs of your cottage, please? He said, ask her. So between the two, I took the photographs. And then it went back into the village and told somebody that I'd been there. And they said, oh, for goodness sake, don't go there. They're a dreadful old pair. He'll murder you if you go there. He'll stab you. But he didn't do that. But that's the only time there's been any questions that it might be difficult.
How detailed are the measurements that you take?
Very detailed indeed, providing the cottage is unchanged. We measure everything with a tape measure inch by inch, and of course take hundreds of photos. Of one farm I took 250 photos, and a lot of them in colour. And then you have a real record. You can make an exact copy. But we are very particular too. We're making a historical record, and we do everything we possibly can to get it really accurate, really authentic.
How accurate would you say that these models are?
Well, I would say where we have been able to measure and photograph the original in its original state, I would say they are completely accurate. I mean, down to the last brick.
Maybe look at one or two of these cottages, the models. You say that they're so tremendously accurate, and I would agree, because even the slate roofs have got some of the slates starting to come off, and the thatch is not quite perfect. Everything is well weathered. Can we have a look at the cottage at the end here that is part of a block? Can you describe it and explain what materials you used?
Well, the material is just white card. They don't look like that when they're finished, but card is the material. The brickwork, stonework, and so on is scored into the card, so it gives a slight relief. It gives a texture. In some cases, on this wall here, for instance, I have actually faced each stone with a small piece of card or paper to give the effect to make it look natural. An architect who saw that piece of wall on the model said he thought that wall was 13th century. I was rather flattered that he was able to date it from the model.
What about these flowers? How difficult are they to make? There's a beautiful garden of flowers in one of the cottages.
Well, they're frightfully fiddly. The materials used for the flowers, there are some big flowers there, sunflower, hollyhocks about an inch high. For those, the stems are blackbird feather. For lavender, there's lavender beside the cottage door, and there's some mauve scabious near the wall in the front, and the mongratia. The stems of those are hair. There's a clematis, a purple Jackmanna clematis, over the porch. That was a major work. It has 51 flowers cut out of greaseproof paper. Each flower has 16 cut sides, because every flower has 4 petals. Every petal has 4 sides. It has 201 leaves, and each leaf has 12 sides. And to cut out all those pieces and paint them and put them together on 31 stems. I can't believe how long it took.
And it's not more really than 2 inches long, I shouldn't think.
Oh, no, not so much as that. It's about an inch high, not much more.
I like this grass in front of the cottages across the road. There's some rabbits looking at the cottage. How high are the rabbits?
Oh, the rabbits are about 3/16 of an inch, I suppose.
Did you make those?
No, I don't do metalwork. I'm no use to metalwork, so one of our team made the rabbits. They're carved out of brass, and they have phosphor bronze ears. How I did that in that scale, I never found out. There is a cat on the wall by the gate. I did do that. That's cut out of balsa wood. Its tail is cotton. Its name is Skittles. It's a real cat that I measured up.
And what did the cat think of being measured?
Oh, I thought it was great. It loved it.
I should imagine you have to be fairly ingenious about the materials you use.
Yes, half the battle is to think of the right thing to use. There's a small hedge here, a little clipped box hedge. That's made of a surgical rubber sponge for the treatment of varicose ulcers, which we put to a new use.
Painted green.
Oh, yes. The right green, too. You must get your colours right.
Now, these models, are they accurate inside as well, or do you not bother?
Oh, yes. Oh, they're fully furnished. Any furniture can possibly be seen through the windows is there.
When you went to measure these cottages outside and inside, did you take the measurements of the furniture and what was in the room at the time?
Oh, yes. Yes, rather. In this corner cottage here, for instance, when I went there, the woman who lived there was just on the point of doing her washing, and she said, "Oh, don't see my room today. I haven't had time to tidy it up." And I said, "It's exactly as I wanted." So she let me in, and I measured everything, and there it is in the model. It's just the same as she left it.
How can we see the inside? It's very difficult through the very small windows.
Well, of course, the cottages light up, and you just have to see through the windows. The cottage can't be opened. The roof can't be taken off or anything like that. You do see through the windows. Just turn off the daylight and put on the lights in the cottages. Just a minute.
Yes, indeed. Now we can see right inside, and what can I... Well, you tell me what's
Well,
there.
in this corner room, there's an oil lamp burning on the table, bread and cheese laid for supper, but nobody's having supper yet because they've gone upstairs to get ready and drawn the curtains. The woman whose furniture I copied in that end room has now left. It's been completely modernized. They have a new grate and all the rest. But she came to see the model some time ago. She was thrilled to bits to find her room just as she'd had it. The first thing she saw was her husband's shirt and pair of socks hanging up to air under the fireplace. You can see them through the side window looking straight in. Then she said, "Now, on the left, there should be a chest of drawers." She looked round to the left. She said, "There it is." She said, "Look, the knob's still off." The cottages went knob missing. It must be strange to come and see a room you've left put back just as you had it. Over the mantelpiece is a mirror. I went to an ironmonger and said, "Could he cut me some mirror?" He said, "Yes, what size do you want it?" 3/16 by a quarter. He had 6 shots before he cut it straight. It's quite difficult to do as small as that. It took him a quarter of an hour to do it. At the end of that time, he said, "Well, I can't very well charge you for this. It's too small." So he did a quarter of an hour's work free.
I can also see, what is it in the room, on the mantelpiece? What is that? Is that a clock?
Oh, yes, there's a clock on the mantelpiece, another one on the cupboard at the side, a rather old-fashioned clock on the cupboard. The one on the mantelpiece is fast, the one at the side has stopped. It'd be quite wrong to have both clocks right.
Now the lights go back on again. Tell me, Mr. England, how long have you been making this model?
I began experimentally a very long time ago indeed, actually in the 1930 period, which we are modelling.
Have you still got the models you first tried it out on?
Oh, yes, the inn, the village inn, which is the very first one.
Can we have a look at that?
Yes, that is in the other part of the village.
And what is the name of the inn?
The Wagon and Horses.
When did you make this one?
Well, I began it, I'm ashamed to say, in 1931, and finished it in Australia in 1936. I am really Australian, I had to go back to Australia, and I took it out with me. It was thatched out there, but with nothing to copy, too far away from the original. It wasn't well done. I wasn't at all satisfied with it, and one of our team has rethatched it for me.
Now, the pub that you first made and tried to thatch in Australia, well, what went wrong exactly?
Well, it was partly the method, and just partly, as I say, that I couldn't see the original to get the effect right. But the method I used then was to sew the thatch in place, and it was not the right way. Now we thatch as the real thatcher does. The material is not the same, of course. We don't use straw. They're miles out of scale. We use human hair, Chinese hair, which is nice and straight and much cheaper than English. But we sent it to Leeds University. They moth-proof it free of charge, which is very nice of them. It's most important. Moths love hair. Then we thatch it, I say, now, as the real thatcher does. Little bundles all the way up, packed in, trimmed. Then the runners are pegged on, as they are in the real thing. But we use entomological pins for the pegs. And then we weather the roof. The thatch, the hair has to be weathered to make it look like straw. We use matte oil paint for that. And often put moss on and that sort of thing as well. And it does come out looking remarkably real.
Now, you said you went back to Australia. You're Australian. But why did you come to England in the first place?
Well, to be quite truthful, I came to England to see the English railways. It doesn't seem a very valid reason, but that's the reason I came.
What did you think of what you saw?
Oh, well, of course, I immediately fell in love with them. I knew I would. And I fell in love with the country as well, the country surrounding them. And I'd always been going to make a really fine model railway one day. Well, obviously, it must be the Great Western and must have a thatched village beside it or near it. And that's how it all happened.
Well, so far there are what? There are some 20 cottages and small buildings that you've made along with your team. How many are there going to be in the final village when it's made?
Oh, about 70 groups is what we're aiming at. And that may be a group, maybe one cottage, or it may be half a dozen cottages. It's frightfully ambitious.
But how long do you think that the whole village is going to take you to make?
Well, when you say village, if you mean the countryside, the village and its countryside and its main line and the trains and everything, the whole lot, oh, I just don't dare to say. It might be. If we get more helpers, we badly want more helpers, more modelers, more helpers in all sorts of ways. If we get more helpers, we may get finished in 15 years. I don't know. It may more likely take 20, I would think.
Do you think you're going to survive to see it completed?
Well, one can only hope.
Mr. Roye England, founder of Pendon Museum.
We hope you have enjoyed this short video. We have a lot more from Pendon to share with you. Click on the link below to access some of our hidden gems, and do subscribe to our YouTube channel, which we update regularly.